bum ba-dum ba-dum ba-dum.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Jen Carroll Show. It's December 14th, and this is probably about as holiday showy as I'm going to get. There are a number of holidays in the coming weeks. Christmas, of course, is on the 25th. We have Hanukkah beginning on December 25th, which for those of families like ours who do both, very convenient. I like how we can kind of plow into Christmas and then right that night kick off Hanukkah. Awesome. And then Kwanzaa begins on Thursday, December 26th. And I know there's a lot of family get-togethers and stuff going on in the meantime. So instead of the blue list today, I have something special. I have 5 tips for happier holidays. And this is based on an amalgamation of all things. So I'll have that for you at the end. And I've even created a little shareable card, a graphic, a meme, I don't know what they're called, a graphic that you can share and then maybe take a picture of or save to your photographs to remember to do these things when it comes time to be with other people. So yay! Anyway, I'm in a great mood. I have such a great podcast for you today. It's fluffy in all the right ways. Especially in California, we just today, not only did I bring you Trey Crowder and a tsunami, but today we got a tornado warning, and it was serious in little old Santa Cruz, California. It's actually into the Santa Cruz Mountains, and apparently there was a small tornado spotted at Scotts Valley Safeway. That's the Safeway my friend works at, but she's not available today. She's decided to have gallbladder surgery for an emergency gallstone. Yay, that sounds awful, but at least I know she's safe. So I don't know where tornadoes happened. I didn't hear anything other than that, and I think that part's passed over, but it has definitely affected today's zeitgeist. And with that, let's go with the zeitgeist. All right, so today in the zeitgeist is all about paying it forward, sharing, being generous, turning the other cheek, whatever you need to do. The news is appalling. I don't even want to bring it up because if you see what ABC did today with George Snuffleupagus and Trump, it's just not going to make you happy. It's not going to make you feel good at all. So the zeitgeist today is all about paying it forward and having fun. And here's what I mean. Sending presents to people you don't really send presents to, and they're not anything significant. They're just little pieces of joy. Or I did a thing today. I happen to once a week, this is such an embarrassing thing to admit. Once a week, I usually go get an Impossible Burger at Burger King because, first of all, they have a special on Wednesdays. I think it's Wednesdays. But most importantly, I really like the crew at my Burger King. There's one in particular, which is on the east side, but it's actually near our Midtown, which it's funny. Santa Cruz is small, and yet, man, even small places, we have our little micro areas we like to hang out, right? So the point is I went to Burger King, and they had put stockings on the wall, those little tiny stockings, for each employee on the team, and there are 18 of them, and I took over 18 lottery scratcher tickets and gave them to the manager and said, you put them in all those stockings because I can't really do anything for those folks, but they work so hard. And if you get the delight of even winning a new lottery ticket, that's a smile, right? So I dropped off the lottery tickets when I got my Impossible Burger today. And now I'm both nourished and spiritually and physically. Also in the zeitgeist is just being aware of people around you. What I noticed when we went to the mall the other day, and that's just a whole different thing. We can talk about consumerism later. I think I'll save that for after Christmas because nobody needs to hear that right now. But I was enjoying just talking to people and sharing happiness. You want to find happiness, go to a Lego store. Holy smokes, I didn't realize. I had realized intellectually that Lego had changed. I didn't realize how cool it has become. It was always cool, but it's like so cool now. So I calculated, because I have O negative, CMV negative blood, I often am offered $50 in exchange for that blood donation. And I really don't like the idea of getting paid to give blood, but if they're going to throw it at me, then I put it in my Mad Money fund. And I found out at the Lego store that for a mere $600, which is just 12 donations, what is that going to take me, a couple of years? I could buy the Eiffel Tower. And it's as tall as I am. There you go. So what I'm saying is find joy where you can find it, because we're going to need that kind of joy, and you're going to need it locally. We can no longer count on national, international joy. We can't even barely count on state joy, possibly community joy at parades and festivals and markets and things. But really, local joy is where we're at. So that today in the Zeitgeist is discover joy and be intentional and notice it. Breathe it in, because we go so fast. And this is, I think, a trait of women. I don't know, I'm not a man, so men tell me. But I think women in particular, we're so used to being required to multitask, we go really fast. And we don't even taste the food that we eat. I remember this well. You're so busy trying to take care of all the things, all the people, you've got packing, shipping, wrapping, buying, stuffing, all this stuff. I used to get so angry at a male friend of mine who would literally wait till the day before Christmas to do his shopping. And I'm like, I think you think you're getting away with something, but you're just telling me that you don't care enough. Like, you haven't prioritized this, because inevitably there would be a disaster because he waited. There would always be a disaster because there's no time for a plan B when you leave, no time for a plan B. So for all of you doing all of this now, for whatever holidays that you celebrate, just remember to be present and to do things with intention and to make some time for yourself, which is what we're going to talk about today with our guests from Salon Confessions about it's okay to shine. And specifically, if it means that you need a perfume or your nails done or that outfit or that food that you like that you absolutely should squirrel away just for you, which is usually a box of See's candy in my world, nuts and chews, then do it. Do it. Look out for yourself and do it, because you deserve it. And it's the little things that are going to make you happy. It's the little things that are going to nourish you and fuel you and make you not resent all the hard work that you're doing. So that's today's Zeitgeist. It's not going to be a long show, but it's going to be a fun show. So when we come back, I'm going to have an interesting and fun interview with the ladies of Salon Confessions. I'll be right back. I have something special for you today. I met Harper of Jen and Harper of Salon Confessions on a Demcast, Demcast webinar that was teaching us how to be pro-democracy champions and how to go forth and take that messaging out to our audiences. And we connected on that Demcast, and here I am with Harper and Jen. And I got to tell you, these two women are not what you think. They have a hell of a good time, but underneath it, they're deeply serious about helping and supporting women in their relationships and everything else. And we'll get into some of that, but I want you to know there's a way you can approach democracy and your passions and bring the two together to reach people who need to hear messages where they are, what matters to them. So let's dive in with Jen and Harper. All right, I'm here with Jen and Harper, the Salon Confessions podcast folks who are here to help remind us all that it is okay to shine, and that democracy lives in all kinds of little corners of this world, and it's delicious, and it doesn't have to be painful. It can be fun, it can be sassy, and frankly, it comes with a certain amount of age, especially ladies, when you decide that y'all can just fuck off, and I'm going to say what I think and what I feel. And with that, I'd like you to meet Jen and Harper. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Hello, hello. We are so happy to be here. I'm Harper.
I'm Jen. We are still in the confessional, actually. We just finished doing Harper's Toes and recording one of our own episodes. So we are still in the confessional talking to you.
Yes, we call Jen's nail studio the confessional because there is a lot of confessing that goes on in this very sacred space behind us. You can see this, Jen.
Carol. I can.
This is our altar of polish. So this is what we, confess before is our altar.
It's beautiful. It is everything you would want the polish altar to look like.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's diverse. It's orderly, and yet I see some standouts in there, people who want it, little polishes that want to be noticed. So yes, I think this is important. It's kind of just like all of us who are here for the fight. And it's funny because, Harper, we met on Demcast, which is what the heck?
Yeah.
That just, I love it because while you guys focus on women, relationships, self-care, you come in funny. Y'all are funny. You're very funny. And in fact,
You
if you listen, folks, I highly recommend Salon Confessions. It's actually a super good podcast if you're like acting out a little bit, a little exercise, a little walk, a little house cleaning, because you're just going to be like, hell yeah. Or you're going to be like, holy crap, what did they just say? I need to rewind that. What was it again? Because you used nipple hair in a sentence and now we're talking about it. And all I know is that's not something we talk about, right? Like, I mean, it's a thing. And I don't know, men think we're magical and we don't have bodies that are mammalian or whatever,
Yeah,
and think that hair
exactly.
doesn't exist in places that it freaking does.
Yeah.
Um, and I realized that when my daughter peed in the woods last night because we got stuck on the highway, and I said, "Oh, must be easy when you're unshaven." But she's like, "You don't pee in the woods." I go, "No, because I'm a collector. I would come home with small animals, nuts and berries attached to me. It's just not going to happen." And by the way, folks, I know this is generally a democracy podcast. We've gone a bit awry, but it's okay. It's going to come out on a Saturday. This is going to be good. This is exactly what you need. So
Exactly on brand for our podcast.
Yes.
Exactly what we talk about.
Yep.
I
We
love it.
go there.
Well, tell me, okay, so I understand that you're part of the resistance, and it's relevant because you care about women's agency, you care about couples having agency, you care about healthy relationships, and all those things are really important as we fight the fight. Tell me what you've learned since you've been doing the podcast, and what are the things that stand out?
I think what we've really focused on, what this started as was just Jen and I having fun conversations, right? Like it was one of those like buddy podcasts. And we didn't understand how unique it was doing it in her nail studio and how difficult it was to record a podcast while you're doing a manicure, and how many audio challenges that created. um,
But here we are, and we're
Yeah.
not changing it. So
Here we are. And the conversations that we always have had are really like deep but funny. So, one of our first episodes was me talking about the time that I had a total meltdown. And instead of like talking to my husband about what was going on, I just had a meltdown quietly and in the middle of the night pitched a tent in our living room in front of the Christmas tree. And so my husband woke up and like saw a tent in the living room and then like very calmly started making coffee in the morning and walked over and sat on the couch next to the tent and said, "Hey, camper," like while I'm clearly having a meltdown. So it's hilarious,
yes.
but it's also this very like deep story about something really epic and I was having a very emotional moment. So we were always balancing these things, and we talked about breaking up with friends, and we kept talking about these things that
Nobody wants to talk about.
exactly, but the headline was always familiar.
Mhm.
And then we would go underneath the surface, and all of these topics that go beneath the surface start aligning with things that people who are more liberal, people who are more open, people who are willing to go there, and tend to be aware, right? Self-aware, politically aware, globally aware, empathetic, um, battling for human rights, women's rights, LGBTQ. I said that wrong. LGBTQIA rights.
Yeah.
I'm told as an ally, we can just say queer. Like we can
Okay.
just say the queer community.
Yes, thank you. The queer community.
Queer community.
And so I think the things we were talking about and the way that we talk about them just made sense to us because that's the kind of people that we are and the circles that we live in. These are the kind of conversations that we have. So the people that we attract, we can just have these conversations. And all of a sudden that was growing into larger conversations where in our last season, we were talking about pronouns, not from the standpoint of like, oh God, those pronouns, but really from the standpoint of, I asked my friend who is married to a trans man and is an advocate for all kinds of advocacy conversations to say like, hey, we're way too freaked out about how to be good allies. Please help us calm down and just be common sense, normal allies. We're trying to go to battle. in every single day. And she was like, no, it's okay just to ask somebody like, hey, what are your pronouns? And like, I personally was like, so like in my head about when is the right time to ask about somebody's pronouns and when should I jump in and defend them, and she was like, it's okay, just ask.
And maybe calm down a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's true that we do get I really feel like, especially people who are listening to podcasts like ours, is that people are in our heads because we want to do the best we can do. We don't want to disappoint where we want to be allies. I think I got handed my ass so fast after the election by Black women who just said, shut up. And I'm like, okay. I
Yeah.
mean, and I get it. Shut up. That
Yeah.
was deep wound going on. And despite my acknowledgement of it, it was shut up is what it was. Shut up, shut up, shut up. So what I think is interesting too is that, well, you guys are looking at life and its complexities actually in a way, because the things you end up talking about really relate to a lot of the stuff I talk about even in coaching, which is self-care matters. Self-doubt will knock you over. Toxic relationships, you need to deal with it. It's not helping you. You can't be an effective human if you're in a toxic relationship. You can't, even if it's with friends and family, you can't do, if you have generational trauma. Another thing you guys have talked about, certainly a big thing in my family, from Auschwitz and from murder, right? Generational trauma. I'm passing down genes from murder. That's just weird. I'm not the murderer. I'm just saying, as a trauma victim, I always feel
Yes.
a need to clarify that. But just,
Yeah.
you talked about the healthcare system and how it's so broken, and we're supposed to rely on that, and it's going to get scary fast. So it's real life. It's the stuff, especially women, but I also think sensitive men. And I mean, sensitive men in that you listen. I love men that listen. We all kind of are our own worst enemies in terms of our own self-management. And that's where this idea of it's okay to shine. It's funny. My daughter was my ambassador to Sephora last night, because that's not a store for me. It
Yeah.
overwhelms me on all levels,
Yeah.
including just I'm not living my life right, right? But what I noticed is everything's about shine. And I said, a good 40 years ago, we tried hard not to shine. That was like the whole goal, is no shiny skin. But I did feel in Sephora there is this shine going on, a shine vibe. I always
Mhm.
talk about the ethos, but as much as it's a for-profit store, there's something kind of remarkable happening in there, and people helping each other in kind of cool ways, and people being seen.
Yeah.
So it is okay to shine, and whatever that means for you. But tell me some of the stories you've heard of where women have just kind of stepped outside the box and tackled something, I don't know, controversial or unwomanly.
Well, I would say part of it is my own story because I come from, my mom was a farm girl, and I grew up with anything you do to make yourself look nice and look pretty, makeup, doing your hair, wearing fancy heels, wearing anything that was sort of, overly revealing was vanity
Mm-hmm.
and was not okay. It just had a very distinct feeling to it. And I just had that internalization of that. And when both of us are divorced and remarried, and one of the things that getting remarried, my husband actually traded his services, he's in digital marketing, with Jen so that Jen would do my nails, which was a great trade for me, really. I was the well, not the other one, but I benefited greatly. And I had never had my nails done on a regular basis and was very like, that was not my thing. I just was like, no, that's,
No, nails are supposed to have dirt.
yeah.
If you're a working woman, you're supposed to have dirt under. That's a very Midwestern gin
Yeah.
and tonic Protestant ethic, right? Like
Yeah.
give
And
it
it
that.
would require me coming back every 2 or 3 weeks, like high maintenance, a lot of that. And my husband was so encouraging, and he's such a feminist as it is, and really wanted me to like give myself this self-care. And he certainly enjoyed it, right? He liked me having like my pretty nails.
Not only did he like the pretty nails, but he also wanted a full playback of our entire conversation
Yes.
every time he
Yes.
came in. Hence how we ended up starting a podcast.
That's part of it.
Because she was repeating it all. Well, we might as well just record the shit so he can listen to it himself.
Yes, yes.
I
He wanted
kind of love that Honey likes to hear the spilled tea, so that's kind of nice.
yes.
It would be like, well, what did you learn from Jen today? At the time, I was very plugged in with, because we went to the same high school. I was very plugged in with a lot of things that were happening with other people's lives. And then I figured out, as you mentioned earlier, that some of that shit is toxic. And I've unplugged from all of that. So I don't have a lot of tea to share with him anymore, but it's okay. We still get along.
No, you
Yeah.
guys interview for the tea now because you've even gone into this one is pretty interesting to me because I think it's it's about owning your power, but it's the idea of the ethical non-monogamy. Okay, so guys, that's just basically ethical cheating is what it means, but it's not cheating because there's an agreement and consent is involved, right? But it's
Correct.
also for a lot of folks that's real risk taking that could fundamentally be really healthy depending on who you are and your situation.
Yeah,
It's our highest played episode
it is.
of all
People
time.
were very curious about this.
Are you sure
And
it wasn't just Lauren Boebert repeating it and repeating it?
yeah, I know you gotta wonder. And I think that there is a lot of, like secret salacious people kind of go, oh, polyamory, or
Mhm.
they want to know, is this talking about sex? And it's really, we were just talking about this. It's really kind of a PG or maybe PG-13 episode. But my friend Zoe comes on and really talks about just like this very thoughtful journey into quote unquote the lifestyle.
Right.
And
It was also the podcast that was listened to, though, in the most countries. So
yes,
this isn't
Oh,
just,
interesting.
yes, it's not, it's been listened to in the most countries throughout the world, more so than any other episode we've put out.
yeah,
I do I have a few episodes like that and I'm like, what did I do? Like, why was that so interesting not here?
yeah, I know.
But the
And I don't
point,
think they got what they wanted out of it, especially if they were looking for something really sexy, because it's not a sexy episode. It's a
No.
very heartfelt episode. She talks about, how it deepened their communication with her partner, and this very intentional process. And what I asked of her was, can you come and talk to us and help people understand the positive, really positive take on this way of living? And that's exactly what she did. And so I've had people listen to it and just say, that really was so interesting, because we have this, like skeezy idea of key parties and swinging, and it certainly can be that.
you can
But
thank the 70s. Yeah, okay.
I know exactly. But it can also be this very intentional and thoughtful and loving, emotionally intelligent way of having a relationship.
And actually, I have 10 commandments up on my site because I think that there's important things in life that we forget about. And one of them is living with intention. And I suspect for most of us, other than that guy, well, for me, cis woman, that guy looks hot. There's not a lot of intention even in how we conduct ourselves sexually, like really being clear about what do I want out of this transaction? And I want love, or I want to be the only one, or I want to go slow. I want to feel hands all over me versus just doing the deed. There's that kind of intentionality, and these kinds of discussions I think help us be better humans because then we pass that on to our friends and our kids, whoever we're modeling for, which is the part I really value. Is like every time we better ourselves, it really does have that butterfly effect, right? It like ripples out and it creates other positive things in the world. So I love that it was about intention and it was about owning your part in that with your eyes wide open.
Yeah, very much so.
Did you
Well,
get feedback?
oh, people loved it. And Zoe was really proud of it too. She shared it with a lot of her friends. And I loved that. I loved that she felt really good about the episode herself. And I had said to her, this is really personal, and she was an alias, but
Right.
it was still really personal. And she had asked, like, is it okay if I listen to it and share it with my partner before you publish? And I said, absolutely. And she just thought that it was so great and something that she was willing to share. I know we both
I'm
have
jealous.
goosebumps. That she was willing to share not only with her partner, but with a lot of people that she knows who know that this is part of their life, and that she's really proud of to be able to share with others.
So for me, I think about a lot of us are learning to be stronger people right now in ways we may not have really thought about. One of mine, I realize I've been kind of doing this awakening for myself, where I'm starting to hold myself accountable for social justices that I haven't fought hard enough for. So I even called Nancy Pelosi's office today because I've just had it. She's trying to mess with AOC. And I'm like, you know
Yes.
what? You need to go home. You need
Yeah.
to be available for consult. But if you're not going to let the youngs lead, we're never going to change anything because Mitch McConnell keeps falling and that motherfucker gets back up every time. He is like a weeble that just will
Yeah.
not fall down. So we got to clear out these guys. But what I love about something like Salon Confessions is you're essentially challenging old ways of thinking and asking us to take responsibility for our current way of thinking. Even if you didn't change your mind, you have consciously decided this is who you want to be.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
from that place, and that's really why it's okay to shine. You have a voice, you have a point of view, and you see social injustice. You can decide to what extent you are willing to fight for it or stand up for it. But that I feel like your podcast kind of gives wings to that sort of confidence because you're forcing people to think things through.
We got probably the best advice I think I've received in all the time we've been doing the podcast when we were interviewing Bethany about how to be a good queer ally.
Mm.
And I just said, in that topic, you meet so much resistance. And she said, ask the question, are you willing to change your mind about that? Because if they're not willing to be open to another thought process, you're wasting your time to even try to have the conversation. And I have utilized that so much through the last however many months dealing with the election, because not everyone's going to think alike. But if they have no intention of being open to another thought, you're wasting your time to even have that.
I love you. It's one of my commandments is that you don't give feedback unless the person who agrees they want it. I mean, it's the same concept. You just don't tell them unless they want to hear it, because then otherwise you're just yapping. And we got a lot of yappers. I'm a really good yapper, but I'd rather focus on influencing those who are willing to listen and have a cool discussion. So I love it. And that to me is a lot of what this I love where you guys go with Salon Confessions because you just take us to places where we might have thought about it or seen it on TV or like gone, oh my God, what are those housewives doing now? Holy crap. And you're digging in and then you're digging in ethically and you're digging in where people can evaluate their own moral sense of what works for them. But you're broaching the topic and like using words about like, I mean, nipple hair. Come on.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
two words are not, I mean, I guess you could Google it and you'd find really weird things on Google, but you're not going to find like, oh, a bunch of bitches talking about nipple hair. That's not going to happen. That's just not going to happen.
I think I nearly gave Jen a heart attack when I said those words.
I still have the visual. And if I think about it too long, I will die of laughter again.
Yeah. And I think that is one of our hopes with this podcast is, and I think especially in the coming days and months, is we know that there's a lot of shit ahead. And
Yes.
we also know that we need to take time to do so many different kinds of self-care, and laughter is one of those things. Like finding the places where we can be with friends and laugh and have that dopamine hit. And we call it in here, we call it being therapetized. It's not therapy. We're definitely not qualified therapists, but we come away feeling therapetized.
Just by talking about it.
Talking, laughing, there's some very therapeutic effects here that help us get through to the next moment. And that's super, super important. So whether we're talking hardcore politics, which really isn't our gig,
Right.
we're here with it. And that's part of what this is. And I think if we're going to land somewhere most consistently, it's really in women's rights and women's health and the healthcare system and how broken it is, especially as it pertains to how little research and how little funding is available for women going through menopause and perimenopause, women's ability to make their own choices about their healthcare. That's where we're absolutely going to show up a lot in our conversations, because it's infuriating. It's madness.
It as someone who, I guess I didn't start menopause until 58. Oh, fuck. more. It took so long. I don't know why. I only had one kid. It was like 100 years ago. What are you doing? But the thing is, it's still a mystery, right? Doctors look at you kind of funny. You're never going to get an appointment long enough to have anybody listen to you in a meaningful way anyway. So you have to almost rely on other women to start to understand what the hell's going on. And so I think adding humor to the whole mess is about the only way we could handle it, because otherwise some parts of this are so sad and other parts are freaking liberating as hell. I mean, go back to that polyamorous or ethical non-monogamy. You can't get pregnant anymore, people. What is I'm saying? That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Pregnancy is no longer on the table, so there may be some fun to be had. And and yeah, and we have Uber now, so you can drink or whatever and get home afterward. You don't have to sleep over. You
So
can.
many doors.
There's so many choices. Yeah, right. The world is our oyster. Which now, wow, might have shared too much. So you're just wrapping up your current season and you're going to be kicking off. Tell me about that.
So we are just finishing season 4, which we can't believe. We were amazed and awed and very proud of ourselves, actually.
Yes, congratulations. It is a lift, and people don't understand. There's a lot of work to do doing this.
Yes, and so few podcasts make it through 2 episodes, much less 4 seasons. And so we're going to do a little bit of recording, take a couple of weeks off in January, and then we'll be back with published episodes in February after the apocalypse.
Yes.
When we all
if you haven't made your vacation plans yet for Martin Luther King weekend, go away go off the grid. It's time to go off the grid, because that's the inauguration is what we're referring to.
I know multiple people who are vacationing during that time. No TVs, they might still be in the United States, but they're not tuning in. They're not watching anything. They're fully checking out because that's the only way they can cope.
I think I'm going to Vegas, of all things. My uncle's going to be there. So I'm like, okay, I'm down. Let's go to Vegas. That's noisy. Nobody can catch me there. That sounds fun. But yes, I agree, Jen. Tons of people are just not going to be playing this time. Like, just no, I don't want to watch. I know it's true. I don't want to watch. So what that means is, though, you can catch up on Salon Confessions and be listening to that and getting your humor on and being prepared for the new season that's going to start. And hopefully also just make you enjoy life a little bit more and maybe take some new risks. And I'm not talking about just sex. Go get your nails done is what I'm saying. Harper changed Harper's life.
It did. It really did. I got Botox for the first time. I got a full Hollywood or Brazilian wax for the first time.
Oh my God.
Love to know about that.
That's probably my favorite episode. Yeah. It's episode 2.
Yes.
I have a friend who does that all the time. And I'm like, I wish you hadn't told me, because I keep seeing you getting prepared for the, what do they call it? The tech to come do their job. And I'm like, I don't need that picture in my head.
Oh God. It's hilarious.
That's a good one.
The best was my husband's face when I told him.
But now you can pee in the woods. This is what I'm saying. See, there's certain freedoms that come with different behavior changes.
And we start every episode with a confession of the week. So if you want to catch up on somebody else's drama, you can feel free to tune into ours.
There you go.
Well, ladies, I want to thank you very much for joining us today. I want to thank you for bringing the joy to life, because we need it, even though you understand the rules of engagement for the long haul. And everyone that listens, I hope you go on over and start listening to Salon Confessions. These are some remarkable women. And frankly, I'm really pro-woman right now. I feel like we're going to make a lot of change.
Amen. We're after it.
Thank you so much for having us.
I will listen to you on the podcast. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jen.
And I'll be right back with the Blue List. Okay, welcome back. I did so enjoy hanging out with those two, Jen and Harper, and love doing the interview. We might hear from them again in the future, but make sure you head on over to Salon Confessions if that's your cup of tea, and enjoy their podcast, because I have been enjoying it. And it's really fun if you're doing something. It's a fun podcast to listen to while you're doing stuff, even wrapping presents and things. You can do, it's a great place to go listen and have some fun, girl fun. And boys, you can have boy fun. I mean, we're talking about stuff that all of us, what they talk about on the podcast, all of us should be willing to talk about. Like, it's good. It's good to hear other people's points of view. So I hope you enjoy that. And now I have for you 5 tips for happier holidays. And the reason I wanted to do this is, I think, as I mentioned at the top of the show, we get so caught up in all the doing that we sometimes forget that the really magical part of being together for the holidays, besides maybe getting to drink more and having it be justified, is the connections that you make. And all adults, I think almost all of us can remember the people that got through to us, that did something for us, listened to us, told us a story, related to something. But when you're a kid, adults can be really confusing. And if they're not tuned into you as a kid, it can really suck. Adults, so the goal here is to get the memories together, to bring people together around points of joy. So the list I'm going to give you, you dial it up or dial it down for your situation. Just stay with the intent. You'll get it. I tend to focus on kids because I think kids often are overlooked during the holidays and just told to what they can and can't do all the time. And they're supposed to have joy for wrapping presents. In fact, and a lot of parents don't even teach their kids how to accept gifts and how to react to gift receiving. And teaching your kids how to receive gifts is actually a really important skill, because if they get a book and then they aren't grateful, and God knows this has happened, that's on you. That's on parents. That's on all of us who are here to teach the kids how to behave and how to have the skills to be good social citizens. So that's my point here, is that it's a chance to really give in ways you don't expect that will last way beyond the physical and commercial aspects of holidays. You know, all the noise, the paper, the candy, all that stuff, and the yelling at each other. Let's face it, everybody's kind of tweaked out because everybody thinks they've got to control all the situation. It's all about control and who has the most control, and don't frickin' mess with the person with the control. So we're going to shift out of that. We're going to go for happiness versus who's in charge of what. And I got to leave the room because Grandpa's had one too many. All right. So the first tip is planning ahead. Bring something interesting. If you're going somewhere, bring something interesting to share with, and I put in parentheses, especially the kids. But in this case, it can be with whomever you're with. If you're a guest somewhere, bringing something to share, and I don't mean to leave, I mean to share. Like, I'll give you an example. 2 years ago, my uncle, my dad's brother, sent my grandfather's pocket watch, the one he used when he was working for the railroads, to my nephews, so my brother's kids. This watch has caused more discussion, more interest in the railroad, more interested in what their great-grandfather did for the railroad, and it was all transformed by one physical item, which was bringing something interesting. He happened to ship it, but my brother saved it till I got there so we could kind of do it as a family. My other brother was there too. It was very cool. Very cool way to connect the past with the present in a meaningful way. And then it led to just dozens of other discussions over the course of the whole visit. So, but this one's on you. You got to plan ahead. So you're going to become interesting by bringing something interesting. Ideally, you'll have a story to go with it or some fun fact. Even if you have to Google ahead of time, just prepare to come in and have something, and you're not going to do it the minute you walk in the door. You're going to find a time, because there's always lulls in the conversation. There's lulls in the moment. There's a chance you can walk away and maybe be with a smaller group. That's when you want to do it. Okay, that's number one, bringing something interesting to share. You can also leave behind, but you get my intent. Number two, have small tasks for awkward guests to do. Now, here's what I mean. When you are a visitor somewhere, it sucks. It sucks because you have to meet the new people. You're on your best behavior. You don't know the culture you just walked in. Families and groups of people have cultures. You really don't know the culture, and you're trying to do everything in your brain to assess what's going on. The minute you have something to do, your self-consciousness, because we are self-conscious, that's one of the things that makes it so uncomfortable, is we're sitting there going, I feel weird in this setting. Your self-consciousness is replaced by purpose. It's my big speech about always, like, agency is everything. So this doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be hard. Sorry, my brain shot ahead of me there. It doesn't have to be that hard. It can be everything from, could you just keep stirring the potatoes, which you don't have to do that one if you don't want people in your kitchen, to, this was always a good one, hey kids, could you guys fold the napkins? Or could you make napkin rings? Or if it's teenagers, they're the worst because they really don't have any purpose and they're 100% self-conscious. They don't make them go play with the children. Please do not make them cool enough to be with the younger adults. So give them something they can do with the younger adults. Maybe you could say, set the table. They could take out the garbage, something that allows them to have some purpose, but you don't want to make them little and you don't want to make them act like they're old. So you want to kind of greet them where they're at, but you're going to need to plan ahead to have some small tasks. My daughter, who is has extreme social anxiety at times, said is actually responsible for this one. She said, the minute I'd go somewhere and there was something I could do, especially as I was trying to figure out the situation, it just relieved so much of my anxiety. So that's what we're going for here, making people feel comfortable. And it's so easy if you just plan ahead to have small tasks. It doesn't even have to be related to what you're doing at that moment. It could be something like, I didn't get to do this yet. Would you guys mind hanging up those coats? Instantly, they're like, yes, I would love to hang up coats. Thank you. You get my point. Number 3, go one-on-one with the kid and ask them what they're really into. All right, you all are cursed if you walk up to kids, and especially teenagers, and go, what are you studying in school? Have you figured out what you're going to do in college? Are you going to apply to college? I'm saying it with dumb voices because these are dumb questions that make teenagers want to slit their own wrists. Teenagers don't really want to be seen in that way, not in a public way, and they don't want to be seen as puppets that just need to answer questions from adults because adults have a total lack of creativity and they're coming at kids with stupid questions. I'm going to ask you to shift that and to sit down with one of them, and you can decide on your kids. And I sit down with all my kids when I am out doing family stuff, but I sit down with them one-on-one. And then I ask them what they're really into right now. And I have seen, my nephews have shown me some of the most amazing writing, some of the most amazing art. I have learned quite a bit about computer games, how they talk to their friends. And I ask, once they're really connecting with you, because you're listening and you're making eye contact and you're curious, you really want to know more, you're going to start to come up with really good questions. I found out, I don't think my brother was too happy with this, but I found out that one of the things that happens is there's a video game going on where the others can hear what's going on in the bedroom of my nephew, including my conversation with him. I didn't care for that. There needs to be some way, and I explained at that moment to my nephew that that's a real invasion of privacy, that I assume when I'm in a room with someone one-on-one that we're private. Not that I was doing anything wrong. It's just a natural thing, right? Privacy is important. And I wanted him to learn to value that. So we ended up having a really good conversation about that. And I wasn't telling him, I was listening and relating, which sounds like now I'm from the 70s again, relating. But the point is, I was trying to track with what he cared about, but then pointing out some things he may not have understood was happening. So also, when you take that one-on-one time with the kid, you become the person they remember. And that's a gift, because they'll remember you were the one that was into them and that paid attention to them. So it's a really karmically sound practice. And it can also work really well with older people. The geezers we get forgotten. I'm not quite that old of a geezer yet, but my family, as kids, we were really raised around a lot of old people. So I'm super comfortable around old people. And I frankly love me some geezers. Geezers are amazing. But again, they need to be listened to too. And so a little private time with a geezer. And then again, listen, make eye contact, and engage. All right, the next one's kind of fun. Number 4 is, you got to plan a little bit ahead, but some of you people are very well suited for this. Share music, dance moves, or anything that'll help the youngs laugh at you and appreciate the olds. So I couldn't fit the words electric slide here, but there's some things we don't want to let die away just because we didn't teach the youngs how to do it. So if there's a favorite song or collection of music that's kind of a family lore or your friend group's culture, share that music, share the dance moves. get the kids off the couch and get the olds off the couch, because once the olds start showing those dance moves, and there's a viral video goes around. One of the things I've had the benefit of enjoying the crap out of is when you get adopted by a Creole family, you learn to do second line. But there's another one, and I don't remember the name, but it's where the older Black men kind of do this walk strut thing. And I know it belongs to older Black men, but I want to do that so bad. It looks so fun. It's just kind of a powerful, savvy dance move, and I think it's awesome. And that's the kind of stuff we need to expose the youngs to, the things that the olds have, so that we keep our culture together, not just our family culture, but our collective culture. These are good things that we passed, and they generally are only passed down through these kinds of events and opportunities. So figure it out, plan ahead, but be prepared. This could be pretty darn fun. And then lastly, and I want you to really hear this one carefully, help clean up. But there's a real caveat to this. You're not cleaning up to help. You're helping clean up because you asked, what can I do to help? So don't do it your way. You're a guest. Do it their way. And when they say, no, there's nothing you can do, I want you to push a little bit, because what you're doing, here's why it's so important. You're modeling collaborative behavior. You're modeling really good manners, and you're modeling cooperative listening skills, because the key here is not to just do crap because you're there and you know better. The key is to listen to your hosts, say, yes, this would be helpful, and then to respond appropriately. You're teaching people how to ask what kind of help would you like, and how would you like me to do it? Because that's actually what's helpful. And you'll find, if you need some ideas, there's simple things you can do to help. Hey, can I go feed the cats or the dog, or take the dog for a walk? You wouldn't believe it, but when holidays and stuff are going on, those things get forgotten. Is there anything I can do to, can I take the garbage out? Would that be helpful? Is it helpful would you like me to bring the cans to the street? Because you know what those kind of jobs are? You can't really bust those up. Those are jobs where even if you get the cans to the street and there's something tiny bit wrong, you've managed to get the cans to the street. That's half the job. So the point is to not force help on someone, but to find ways to make helping out delightful, and including others when you're helping, so that you're modeling good behavior. All of that, all these 5 steps should make for happier holidays, because they're about connecting rather than everybody coming in, being loud, and telling their stories. You're much more, I'm into you. It's much more being into you. And the key that I put at the bottom of my little graphic, be present. So I know it's tempting to get really loaded to deal with your family. Lord knows I've done it. But the problem is, if you go too far, then you're not present anymore. So balance that, really, because you don't want to be the sloppy relative who isn't present. Be patient. I don't know why. I think we all come in such a hot anxiety rush to some of these things. Not all of them, but some of them, our anxiety is so high that we just start taking action. But if we could slow down, if you can ground yourself even before you enter, and that's like a real thing. Sit in the car for a minute, or on the way there, just be thinking, okay, there's nothing I need to do today but be present, patient. And then the last one I really recommend is be curious. The minute you stop talking and you invite others to talk, it will shift the dynamic, because now it's not one way, it's 2-way. And by being present, it'll facilitate your ability to be curious, because you'll be listening. And so you could actually ask a meaningful next question instead of just quickly top somebody's story with your story. That's fun too. That's okay. But realize that becomes kind of a get carried away behavior, where everybody's just sharing their, one time I. Little kids can do that, but adults, that's really weird. Like, you need to slow down, and you need to be present, patient, and a little curious. And generally, I believe you'll have a much happier holiday. All right. I'll still have other podcasts as we go through the holidays. I don't have any idea what I'll do, but they'll probably be more serious. This is the one that's most fun. Thank you so much for listening today. And here's hoping you have a great weekend.